Right, because of the continued COVID-19 restrictions and limitations of people allowed to congregate, only a limited number of staff, along with the Board of Trustees, will be allowed in person. In order to accommodate public participation, a continued virtual link will be provided via live streaming on RCC's YouTube channel, and it's posted. Members of the public can join the meeting virtually through Zoom to directly voice their comments to the board. They only need to visit the Board of Trustees page on the RCCD website and complete the form to speak. A link to join the meeting will automatically be sent to you. Also, written public comments can be sent to a written public comment email address, which will be read during the public comment portion of the meeting. Submissions by email must be received prior to 4 p.m. the day of the meeting to be included. So at this time, let's do first, are there any public comments? None, nobody? They still don't want to visit with us. Okay. So I will not have to read the comment section. We now move into the public hearing section, and there is no public hearing. So the Chancellor's report. Dr. Isaac, it's all yours.
Madam President, I have a very short report tonight. First of all, I would like to thank the RCC facilities who in record time made this arrangement so that we can have our first, after 1 year of hibernation, our first face-to-face meeting in one of the most beautiful facilities that the district owns. So thanks to Raymond Ship and your staff for all the work that you have done to make this possible. Preparations for the safe return. This is the beginning of the safe return. As Trustee Figueroa has said, the preparation for the safe return is progressing in earnest. Vaccination is occurring in every campus on a weekly basis, and every week we have close to 2,000 vaccines being given. There does not seem to be any problem with supply of vaccines. Therefore, we are even encouraging our staff and our employees to even bring their families and friends to be vaccinated. Vaccination at the state and county level is also progressing very well. Thus far in California, about 30 million have received at least one injection, and 18.4 million have received both injections. In Riverside and San Bernardino counties, vaccination is also progressing. However, among our Hispanic and African American population, there are still significantly lower levels of vaccination compared to our Caucasian and Asian counterparts. We therefore need to all we can do to help our communities to see and accept that the vaccine is both safe and effective, and it is important to be vaccinated to protect oneself and one's families. And I think this is why we are also encouraging in our vaccination site in our campuses for our staff to bring their friends and families to be vaccinated, because we have enough vaccines. In accordance with our plans to reopen to the fullest extent possible in the fall, arrangements are being made to bring back managers on June 7th so that we can complete all our planning by August so that we can start without any glitches, and our classified professionals will return back the same day when Governor Newsom will lift all restrictions on June 15th. So we're still having discussions to look at potential effects and impacts, but once again, we have left open all the system, the process that we have for accommodation for all those that might need accommodation because of their special conditions. Last week, we have been receiving briefings from our Washington, D.C. lobbyists on what we can expect with President Biden's initiative with the American Family Plan. This plan includes free community colleges. And although on the surface this is very attractive and we received it with a great deal of excitement, we feel that since California community college education is highly subsidized and we have the lowest tuition in the nation, if free tuition is only covering the existing tuition fees, then the plan will not be as helpful to us as to many other states in the East. However, if the federal government will pay for the community college tuition in full, we can then lobby and advocate for the state of California to reinvest the money that was originally given to the community college tuition subsidies to now restructure our apportionment, because our apportionment is still the lowest in all the education strata, not just in the higher education, but even compared to K-12. And so we are going to be writing opinions. We were encouraged to give our comments to Washington to see if this issue of restructuring the apportionment system, the funding system, can also be part and not simply address the tuition alone. The community project, which is normally called the earmark, which has just been introduced, is now going, at least from the congressional side. Last week, I had a phone call from our representative, Congressman Mark Takano, where he informed us that of the 4 projects that he is sponsoring, that ours stands on the top, and it is the funding for the trade tech, and the funding is, the request of the funding is up to $1.5 million. So we hope that this will be a good seed money upon which we can base future requests, provided that the money is granted. Lastly, I would like to say that the Inland Empire Guided Pathways Summit that initiated on April 29th was concluded, and all 3 colleges participated. At the opening, we had the State Chancellor, Eloy Oakley, and the CEO for the College Futures, giving a very interesting reflection on recovery with equity. And I feel proud that all 3 of our community colleges are doing so well in the scaling of the guided pathways. Our Summer Math Institute is also progressing. Recruitment is on the way. We have so far over 400 that have indicated their interest. A closer look of the data, however, looks like we may have more people who are not quite in the target population who are expressing interest. And we have reminded everyone to be very vigilant in spreading the news and helping us recruit, so that the people whose inequities that we are trying to address can truly benefit from the Summer Institute. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Isak. Dr. Isak, just a real quick question on the Math Institute. When is the cutoff date for that to end up enrolling and being a part of it?
I think we will continue enrollment until it's filled, because the program starts in the summer, but we are already opening the priority registration for other students. So I don't know whether Ginny or Mark, do you know when the cutoff date is for the Summer Institute?
No, I'm sorry. I was raising my hand at the beginning at the Reaper.
So somebody has recognized my voice is too low, and they're artificially trying to expand it too much. So. And once upon a time, when I was in Riverside, date for the summer enrollment. We have a few weeks, so we would appeal to everyone, every one of you, even if you say, everyone recruit staff, you will be able to get the room filled.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. And I saw it on social media and it has generated comments. So people are seeing it. So that's really, really good. Before we go on to the board committee reports, there's one thing that we need to do very quickly. Trustee Virginia Blumenthal is ill tonight and she is not able to join us. So I need to entertain a motion to excuse her absence from my board members.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Trustee Hedrick moves and it's seconded by Trustee Alcala. And all those in favor, roll call vote. Trustee Hedrick.
Aye.
Trustee Alcala.
Aye.
And Trustee Vakar. Aye. Thank you. And Trustee Figueroa, aye. So passed unanimously. And our student trustee, although not here physically, is on virtual with us. So at the appropriate time, if he needs to make a comment, I think he knows how to handle that part on the Zoom part. And but he is listening to our board meeting and participating. All right. All right. So moving on to the board committee reports, teaching and learning. Ms.
evening.
Bakar.
Thank you. Our first item this evening will be with teaching and learning. It's with Dr. Kim. It's regarding our data dashboard presentation, and I'm so excited to introduce this item. Thank you, Dr. Kim.
Terrific. Welcome, everybody, and good evening, Board of Trustee members, Chancellor, and colleagues. This evening, we will be presenting the progress on our PRT, our Partnership Resource Team project. Dean David Torres will be presenting on behalf of the Institutional Effectiveness Team.
Am I allowed to take this off or can you? Okay. Thank you. Wow. This is such a lovely place.
Isn't it?
I feel tempted to sing my PowerPoint
Just turn
presentation.
around.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Oops. Thank you. In 2020, the district received a Partnership Resource Team grant for $200,000. At that time, it was difficult to extract needed data from the colleague system, and we wanted to be able to get and use data from that system to create data dashboards that would align with the vision for success performance indicators. This presentation reports on the progress made toward those goals. Next slide, please. For the next few slides, I will provide a progress report on the District Office PRT, Partnership Resource Team projects. Project 1 established a district-wide data and storage reporting system. As of January 2021, we have completed the ODS, which is the Operational Data Store. All colleague live data were normalized and moved to an SQL server, allowing the data to be queried in an easier, more efficient manner. We identified a vendor who is currently designing a data warehouse for us. Working closely with the district IT department, we will ensure that the data warehouse will be integrated into the work of the new ERP. Additionally, we will also set up a mini data warehouse where we will put all the MIS data files into an SQL database for district-wide researchers to use. Next slide, please. The second project was to purchase an enterprise platform to create and publish interactive dashboards. In order to share the dashboards with a wider audience, an enterprise-level tool needed to be purchased and configured. The district decided to move forward with the purchase of Microsoft Power BI Premium as the best option for our dashboard needs. Power BI Premium was purchased and configured in January of 2021. Power BI will integrate with the new ERP, making data querying easier and more efficient. Next slide, please. One of the main advantages of a data dashboard is that it can be a more efficient way for users to get the data they're looking for. In a traditional research process, a requester will ask the researcher for data, and through an iterative process will finally arrive at the answer that they need. An example of this would be asking a question about success rates and then saying, well, what's the success rate for African-American students in this situation? And the researcher goes back and calculates the numbers and gives it back. Okay, what is it for foster youth and so forth? So it's this iterative process. In the dashboard process, the user has a much more agentic role in their inquiry. In the dashboard process, it's much more transparent, allowing the requester to use their curiosity to ask different questions, query the database, and have more ownership in the process. Please note that the dashboards will not replace all queries. Typically, simpler queries can be handled, thus freeing up more time and resources for more complex research questions, which ultimately will yield a more efficient use of research resources. Next slide, please. Thank you. This is a snapshot from the daily enrollment report. In the red box above, there are filters, which allow the user to select specific attributes to highlight. In this case, the term 21 SPR is selected. So the visualizations that are to the left and below are reflecting the data that is specific to spring 2021. This is an example of a near real-time dashboard because it's updated every day. One of the advantages of data dashboards is that they are interactive, thereby allowing the user to compare the data summaries, which are the graphics, by selecting or unselecting specific attributes. Also, many dashboards will filter the data just by selecting the part of the graphic that is of interest. For example, if one were to select the orange column in this dashboard, then only the data for Riverside College would be shown. Filters and visualizations are necessary to any interactive dashboard. Next slide, please. This is a screenshot of the RCCD student headcount dashboard that we will be housing on the district's institutional research and strategic planning webpage. Describing the elements on this page, in the upper left-hand corner, there are filters to select by college, and next to that, boxes to select whether the data is to be displayed by term or year. Beneath that are columns with the fall enrollments for the past 7 years. If one were to select a year, then all the visualizations on the page would pertain to that selected year. The table on the right-hand side can be changed to show student ethnicity, age groupings, gender, and full or part-time status. In the upper right-hand corner in that little box with the eye that says Read Me, there's an informational link that gives details about the data and its sources. Next slide, please. This dashboard shows the course success rate for students, and its structure mirrors the previous dashboard. In addition to filters for the colleges and time period, this dashboard provides data for the student course performance. In the graphic on the left side, there are time periods which are selectable, showing retention and success rates. Further filtering will allow users to look at student performance by subject, as well as other demographic indicators. Next slide, please. This dashboard provides information on student awards granted during specific years. Filters also include college, award type, and demographics, and top codes. That's a taxonomy of program codes. Additionally, the graphics in the left-hand side has the counts of awards, as well as the average units earned at the time of award. As these counts represent awards and not unique students, students may be counted more than once if they received more than one award during the selected time period. Next slide, please. This dashboard displays the annual district employee headcount based on the fall census that's done in November by the Chancellor's Office. This dashboard can be presented as either counts or percentages. And in addition to the demographic indicators, this shows the employee type for the most recent 8 years. The source for this data is the State Chancellor's Office. Next slide, please. This is a listing of all the currently configured data dashboards constructed at either the district or the college level. As previously mentioned, some of these are public and some of these are designed for internal use only. Now, at this point, I'm going to have to go and switch places with Jeannie Fortin because I'm going to do a live demo. So let me take this over there.
There you go.
Oh, great. Okay. Okay, great. Thank you. So for the live demo, I first want to show you, and if I can, I'm going to just minimize this little screen here. There we go. I want to show you the first thing I want to show on any dashboard is it's kind of hidden right here with this thing. That's the reset button. That's a real important button with dashboards, because when you're selecting and deselecting on a dashboard, it's easy to forget what you selected, and it makes a difference as to what's shown. So for example, you can select or deselect the colleges. Right now, what we're showing is the fall terms for student headcount, fall terms for the last 7 years. 7 years? 7 years, yes. So this is for the entire district. So if we were to click on, for example, Moreno Valley, did it all change? I can't. There we go. It took a second because every time you click on something, it's doing all the calculations in the back on the back end. So what that did now is that it changed. So all of the graphics that you're seeing here and all of the numbers that you're seeing here just pertain to Moreno Valley. So you can select that college, you can deselect it and say, let's look at Norco College. And this way you can do comparisons very easily from college to college on different attributes. That's why, here's why I say it's important to make sure that you deselect, because if you select it and go on to RCC, now you've got Norco and RCC selected, and you may not want that. You may just want RCC, so you've got to deselect Norco. So there's a little bit of a technique that you need to learn when you're using these, but they're very easy to do actually. Results can be presented by a specific year or academic term, as we see here. You can see, you could pick out by fall term, spring term, summer, winter, or by the annual counts as well. By selecting one of the time periods in the upper left-hand graphic, for example, let's go ahead and reset this. That way we'll just start fresh here. Give it a sec. There we go. Okay. By selecting one of the time periods in the upper left-hand graphic here, the dashboard changes to reflect that time period. As an example, let me select fall 18. Like select fall 18. First of all, you notice that that changes, but then also all the other numbers here change as well. All the different graphics and all the different tables change to reflect what you've selected. The table in the upper right-hand corner, this table up here, that can display the results by ethnicity, or we can display them by age group. And this is still 18 fall, gender, and full or part-time for each of the colleges. So let's reset the dashboard again. And I'm going to show just a very simple example of how, by using the control key, you can select multiple attributes and do a little bit deeper analysis. Let's say we wanted to see the difference over fall terms in Hispanic male student representation at the college. First, you would select Hispanic. So you see how that was selected, and it changes all the numbers across you should change all the numbers everywhere. But then what we also do is, while holding down the control key, we select from this graphic here, male. So now all we should see are Hispanic and male. There we go. And it's taking a second here for everything to update here. This is kind of a slow machine. And yes, this is actually taking a lot longer than typically does. There we go. And so you see that here is the district count for Hispanic males for the 3 colleges. And I didn't pick a specific year. If we wanted to then let's add another year. Let's look at only 18 fall again. And now we've got Hispanic males for fall 18. And we can see how how many students there are in the entire district. If we wanted to, then we could say, well, let's look at how these trends were over time for Moreno Valley. And that's all the Moreno Valley numbers. If we unselect that, we can go and click on Norco, and we should. You see that it's taking a while to do all of this calculation. So, I mean, there's a lot of data in the background there. And so the better hardware you have, the faster machines you have, the faster internet connection you have, you're going to see this refreshing in real fast time. Right now, it's actually kind of slow here. But by selecting the different colleges, you can start to see and you'll get different answers to your questions. So that's a real simple explanation of how dashboards can be used. So I'm going to go back to my presentation now, and I'll reset that and we'll continue. Thank you. As the district and the colleges create more dashboards, decisions about who will have access to them will need to be made. The dashboards shown earlier are public, and internal dashboards are created for the more specific purposes for use within the college community. Next slide, please. With so much data brought together to create a useful dashboard, it is imperative to maintain the privacy of the data. Recognizing this need, the institutional effectiveness staff and the district informational services are creating a document to govern the operation and deployment of the dashboards. This will help to maintain a high level of data security while still allowing for staff across the district to use and share these data dashboards. Next slide, please. As these dashboards are powered by the connecting of databases, and you saw just how much computing was going on in the background there as we were making our demonstration. They're powered by the connecting of databases, particularly their student databases. We want to guard the privacy of students' data as our highest safety concern. Presently, our dashboards have some basic data safeguarding practices employed, like removing any personally identifiable student data prior to uploading and limiting any downloads to summary level data tables. We've also engaged the services of DynTech. It's a data security organization that will help us implement best practices for our dashboard security. And next slide, please. And as I said, there were 3 projects on our PRT, and this is the 3rd one. With the influx of all this data in the hands of so many users, it is important that we have standardized training, and we provide standardized training on how to access and interpret the data. Toward that end, each of the colleges have developed data coaching programs, and we have sponsored the trainings of 28 faculty coaches. Next slide, please. So in closing, the dashboards are poised to help the district get necessary information into the hands of more constituencies and help make RCCD a more data-informed culture. And I will be happy to attempt to answer any questions you have.
Okay, do we have
Thank you.
questions from members?
Thank you so much for that presentation. Are there questions from the trustees? I think I almost forgot how to do this.
Yeah.
Trustee Hedrick.
Yes, I don't have a question, but I'm very impressed with the capabilities, and I look forward to playing with it. It's
And
very
thank-
interesting.
Thank you. And I would be remiss if I did not mention all the work of the institutional effectiveness offices at the colleges and our institutional research office at the district level. This was truly a team effort, because everybody came, all of our research people and the deans of institutional effectiveness came together, and we're all kind of learning this new technology together. So we've had workshops, we've had ways to try and understand how you get the data, to look certain ways and how you get it all to work together. And so it's been a really great example of how our colleges kind of, at least in our institutional effectiveness, we're not so siloed. We like to work with each other, and we really are enjoying this, and we're learning from each other. And the fact that we were able to pull this together all virtually, nobody was in the same room with anybody as we did this. It's really, I really have a tremendous amount of respect for the team that I work with. They are a fantastic team, very intelligent and very personable, and they understand what they're doing. So you've got good people working to make these dashboards. I actually have I've done probably the least of any of the dashboard work. It's all the other people. They're quite talented at this. So thank you.
President Figueroa.
So clarification, at one point, I know I heard you say that it's almost kind of like we need to contain the information or protect the information. But then at the same time, at the ending of the presentation, I'm hearing, that this would, this is a perfect amount of information to distribute for public, evaluation or for public, use. So what are the differences of the two? See, and what I'm trying to say is the information that's being provided, I mean, it's impressive thinking back to a time when we had to wait for something to be printed out to us, sent to us. And by that time, it was already like months old.
Mhm.
And here we've got like at your fingertips information available quickly. And some of it may be sensitive information, but can you kind of clarify what we mean by protecting the information, but then also disseminating it for use?
Yes, we do adhere to all the FERPA policies about student educational rights and privacy. So we're very aware of what we can put out for people to see. So we don't put anything out there that if we see, as we test out these data sets, if certain, for example, in student course success files, if there's a class where there's a small number of students and a person could reasonably figure out, well, who was that student? Let's see, it was an Hispanic female student who was, let's say, under the age of 20. And you start clicking all these different filters and you start to see, oh, I think I know who that is. If that is possible to do, we say, okay, we don't put that data out there. We put a little asterisk and saying, for privacy reasons, we can't do that. And that's standard policy for any kind of like data dashboards or data dissemination, is that when the groups are so small that they can be identified, we certainly don't put any of that stuff out there. Also for faculty and courses, we don't do any of that stuff so that you can tell which courses or which faculty were teaching certain courses. Everything is done at a much higher level. So you can get that kind of data, but it's not going to drill down to like the most granular level. We're very aware of that. And that's one of the reasons why we're making these documents about the data security. And also we've employed this company, DyneTech, to help us to kind of figure out what things we can and cannot do, because we're very aware that we don't want any kind of data going out there that can be certainly misused, or it's certainly not appropriate for other people to have. So we're very aware of that. And one of the safeguards that's in the Microsoft BI right now is sometimes if you go to data dashboards, if you click on them, and I'm sure you've seen them going on the internet and different like government agencies and so forth, some of them will say, click here to export the data to an Excel table so you can look at it and analyze it in Excel. And that's fantastic. And we do that, but we can do that at a very high level. So instead of saying, give me all of these, give me these 4,000 students. Well, no, we'll give you these 4,000 students, but they're going to be in groups of their ethnic group or like their age group, these really big categories. So it's difficult or impossible, actually, I should say, to pin down who that data belongs to. So that's one of our challenges, making sure that that kind of data stays locked down, but also making it as open and as available as possible so that it's useful, because you don't want to have things that are at such a high level that there's no specificity that you can't answer your question in an appropriate way. But we're very aware that we don't want any personally identifiable data going out about students or faculty or anybody, because data privacy is a very high concern for this. And that's what kind of like makes the process go a little bit slower than it needs to. And when I say there's a real-time data going up, like I give you that example earlier about that's the enrollment dashboard, enrollment management dashboard that is updated every night, but that's just numbers in the aggregate. There's not individual student numbers. That's numbers in the aggregate, and that's provided for internal use for planning purposes only. So we are aware of that, and we are trying to make sure that we get the data at the lowest possible level, that it's informative and will answer questions, but at the highest possible level so that nobody's privacy is being compromised.
Okay, and that's going to be something very important to keep in mind as we move forward with information like the data dashboard information, because the one thing that we don't want is that we don't want there to be an impression that we're retaining some information, or we're not allowing access to some information because we feel that it's detrimental to the image of the college. So when we're looking at the numbers are there and they're clearly stated. But as was indicated, the clarification on the confidentiality of maintaining the students, confidential role, that's important too. So I think that that's going to be important to make sure that when we put this out, that it's a very clear statement that it's there, it's available for everybody, for them to open discussions on information that they may see that maybe we don't. But then at the same time, there are issues that, if they can't access, and if they bring it up and say, well, I was trying to find this information and it won't let me do it, then maybe part of the reason is because we do have that clarification of the fact that it's a student confidential issue, and we're trying to keep the protection as we should be. So
yes, and in those, I think I mentioned most of them, they should have like a README, a little thing, a little box you can click on to say, here's some information on the back end, and inside of that information typically is information about privacy and why you may not see certain things here because it would compromise someone's privacy.
oh, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we try to be proactive and keep that as part of each dashboard.
Great. Okay, thank you.
So call to you. All right, well, I just want to thank you so much for this presentation. I was really excited to see what this was going to look like. Obviously trying to sometimes get data even from the state, at the state chancellor's office level. We don't even see this up there with them on this kind of level quite often. So it's really great that I think from what our 3 colleges are able to contribute along with our district to be able to share this information, to be able to look at it, especially to be able to help inform decisions. Super excited about it. This is great work, teams. I just want to thank everyone for all your efforts in making this happen. And I realize that, this is our first year kind of deploying it out there. But this definitely checks off a big piece of some of the work that we talked about within our goals and our goal planning, with being able to look at data in more real time than some of those reports that we were seeing that would take, by the time they got sent to the chancellor's office and then got sent back down to us, although information was done well on our end, we didn't see those results for years. And I can remember sitting here in one of my first meetings and going, what do you mean we're looking at data that's like 5 years old? And Bill, I remember when you came in, that you saw the same thing. And you're like, wait, even in the K-12 world, that's not like how it's like really done. So it's nice to be able to start to see that these conversations and the ability to be able to just get on and be able to look at some of our demographics. Even like when we're like working on certain kinds of programs or maybe on grants or when we're speaking with a legislator. I mean, what a great tool for them to have access as to what we're doing. So congratulations, great job.
Thank you.
So excited. There's not an action on this item, right? This is just moving forward. This is not something that we're voting on at the next meeting. All right, our next item from teaching and learning, I think Dr. Kim is up again. It's on our proposed curricular changes.
Good evening again. This evening, we have for your review a new associate's degree program for transfer in business administration 2.0 for Moreno Valley College. The business administration program has been revised to meet CSU requirements. Computer information systems 1A has been removed from the program, and business 10 has been added to the program along with an additional math class. The second is a program modification for music at RCC for the transfer model curriculum, updating courses which qualify for the core and options under list A. This concludes the proposed curricular changes this evening.
Thank you for that information. Are there any questions with regards to the changes and modifications? None, we'll be bringing that item back at our next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the next committee up is resources, and that goes to Trustee Alcala.
All right, thank you. Good to see all you beautiful people. And so we will start with our presentation on the California Community College Capital Outlay Plan Revision Presentation. Mr. Brown.
Thank you, Trustee Alcala. In order to participate in the state capital outlay program, the district must prepare a 5-year capital construction plan on an annual basis, prioritizing the capital projects for each of our colleges. The state has a scoring system to score each capital project and has recently adopted revisions to that system. Associate Vice Chancellor of Facilities Planning and Development, Hussein Aga, is here to go over the changes in the scoring system in advance of the 5-year capital construction plan, which will be presented next month. Hussein?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to Vice Chancellor Brown about the introduction. Just to give a little bit background about the capital outlay program. In 1999, the California Community College Board of Governors adopted scoring system to ensure capital outlay project proposals reflect the state priorities. In 2018, the Board of Governors requested that capital outlay plan is aligned with the vision for success. So over almost 2 years, the State Chancellor Office, the ACBO Facilities Task Force, and also the Department of Finance worked together in order to make changes to the state capital outlay scoring matrix. The new scoring were approved by the Department of Finance in August last year and adopted by the Board of Governors in September also last year, and now they are in effect. Next slide, please. So this presentation will provide details about the new scoring system for capital outlay project. We have a quick agenda for today, and I will go over the particular those topic in the next slides. Next slide, please. In compliance with the California Education Code, each district is required to submit its 5-year capital construction plan in July every year. The 5-year capital construction plan includes prioritized projects, project schedules, and budgets. And part of the 5-year capital construction plan are the IPPs and FPPs, which are really the vehicle for state-funded projects. Initial project proposal create the eligibility, and the final project proposal create basically the binding document between the Board of Governors and Board of Trustees to get the project funding. Next slide. Project eligibility criteria. Each project needs to comply and be consistent with the educational and facilities master plan. Also, the cap load ratio for each project cannot exceed 100% of each space category. And these are office space, labs, classroom, library, and ABTV. The state supports all type of instructional and academic spaces, except those that generate revenue, such as food services, bookstore, parking, and athletic field. They will not be funded by the state. In the previous metrics, the state did not require local contribution. However, districts were able to add up to 50% of the total project budget, and they received additional point for competition with the system-wide. One of the state requirement also that the fixture, furniture, and IT equipment will need to be 100% funded by the local district. Next slide, please. So here's the new scoring metrics. Project categories got collapsed to 3 categories. It used to be 6, and now they are 3, which are the fire life safety, category A, growth, which is category G, and modernization, which is category M. Now the Department of Finance requires minimum 25% of local contribution for every single project, regardless of the category, A or G or M. And the state revised the hardship waiver and now aligned with the K-12 provision. And next slide, we will be talking about those hardship. The new metrics also added 2 vision for success, which are the region of high needs, including Inland Empire, and the more emphasis on CTE program within that project. Next slide. So as stated, the state requires 25% of local contribution. However, district as a minimum, and that's a must, and district can add up to 50%. For the hardship waiver, one of the provision that was eliminated in the final version of the new scoring metrics is the good faith effort to pass a bond in the past 5 years. So that option got eliminated in the new scoring metrics and replaced with these 3 different hardship waivers, and they are more tailored for a smaller district. Like district that pass a bond, but it's not sufficient to really fund a project, or they don't, or their bonding capacity less than 50 million. Next slide, please. Here is a side-by-side comparison about the growth category project. On the right-hand side, you see a couple of columns in the differences between the old versus the new scoring, and they both tally at 200 points. The new scoring metrics remove the assignable square footage, which is about 50 points, and replace with the FTS and the 2 vision for success metrics, which is the CTE and region of high needs. Next slide, please. On the modernization project, the changes were as follows. Age of the building, which is the first metric, it used to be 120 points and now 60 points. The second one got removed, which is the activate unused space, and replaced with the facility condition assessment of 40 points. The other 3 new metrics, which I highlighted in bold, are similar to the growth category. and they both tally to total of 200 points. Next slide, please. So what are the impact for RCCD for our district? So each project will receive additional 5 points for being region of high needs, which is about 2.5%. Back in 2019 and early 2020, the discussion about the region of high needs was about 20 points, but unfortunately, the final version reduced it to only 5 points. The district project will not qualify for hardship waiver anymore because none of the hardship provision that's approved in the final version applicable for our district, which means that any project submitted for eligibility will need to add local contribution minimum, actually 25% of that total project budget. For instance, if our total project budget is 40 million, we need to have a 10 million as a local contribution for eligibility and also competition. Project to complete campus concept, such as performing arts projects, centers, and physical education, will now compete with the against all projects. As I mentioned, the categories got collapsed from 6 to 3. So now these two different facilities or type of buildings will compete with the growth or modernization. Additionally, the campus infrastructure upgrades, renewable energy projects, deferred maintenance, and non-supportable projects such as parking or space or food services will need to be 100% funded locally. Next slide, please. We brought a few examples from for our projects. These 3 FPPs were submitted last year in the 5-year capital construction plan. They were submitted with 0 local contributions, so none of them got approved last year. But we wanted to show you the scoring, the side-by-side comparison between the old score and the new score for each one of those projects. So, for instance, the Marina Valley College Library Learning Resource Center, last year's score 93 points. Based on the new metrics now, it's 76 points. And this is out of 200 points total. That doesn't include any local contribution, which is, I mean, if we have a 50% local contribution, we can add a 50 point on top of each of those numbers. For the example on Norfolk College Library Learning Resource Center, it scored last year 95, this year 62. And mainly because of the CTE program. You can see these 2 projects received 0 point for CTE because they are library space. In comparison to the cosmetology, actually, it used to be 82 and now 84 because mainly the whole program is CTE program. So receive additional 25 points. So pretty much augment all the lost point in different categories and provide additional 2 points. Next slide, please. So state funding status and upcoming legislative updates. We know Proposition 51, which was passed in 2016, allocated $2 billion for California Community College District. So the state has been funding projects throughout the community colleges from 2017 all the way to 21, 22. But the remaining allocation is about 80 million left. And that 80 million will fund 10 projects in fiscal year 22-23, next following 2 years from now. We also know, like 2022, the voters had very bad appetite for propositions and bond. So Proposition 13 and Proposition 15 both failed in March and November 2020, respectively. However, there are a couple of capital outlay bills that are currently in Sacramento, which are Assembly Bill 75 and Senate Bill 22, and they both intend to raise statewide bond for school and community colleges and higher education. With that, it concludes our presentation. We'll be happy to answer any question.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions, colleagues? Other committee members? All right, thank you. That was really succinct and easy to follow. Although that statewide magic math, you gotta love it. Yes, trustee Hedrick.
Question. So would it be correct to say that unless we pass a local bond, we're dead in the water at this point?
That's absolutely right.
Oh, all right, thank you.
All right, so on to the next report. Then our next report will be the RCCD EEO Fund Multiple Method Allocation Model Certification for fiscal year 2021. And I believe this is Vice Chancellor Best.
Thank you, Trustee Alcala, President Figueroa, trustees, and Dr. Isak. In the fall of 2015, the statewide Equal Employment Opportunity and Diversity Advisory Committee identified 9 best practices areas for success in promoting EEO. These 9 areas serve as the multiple methods for allocation of the EEO fund. In order to qualify for the EEO fund funding for fiscal year 2021, districts must complete and submit a multiple method certification form. The attached document satisfies this requirement. I'm going to ask Lorraine Jones. She's supposed to join us remotely.
I'm here. Good evening, everybody. I am presenting our update. This is a form that we report on annually. You'll notice for method one is the baseline requirement that all districts must meet in order to qualify for funding. Currently, it is indicated that we do not meet measure 1. That is directly related to our EEO plan currently being out of date. We put pause on that in January when the updated EEO plan was brought forward in response to concerns that were raised by our faculty colleagues, and we've been working diligently to address an examination of the committee structure, including faculty representation and how they're appointed. I did reach out to the state chancellor's office for clarification because it's not that the district doesn't have an EEO plan, it's that it's expired for all intents and purposes. And so I expect a return call from the state chancellor's office within this week. I had contact with them today and they're reviewing the matter and will report back to me whether or not we can indicate that we meet number 1 as the date of the EEO plan is the only thing in question. All other requirements are met. We have the advisory committee and we annually submit our expenditure reports. So beyond the question that still remains with level 1, which I will have an update for when I bring this back to the regular board meeting, we do meet 6 of the remaining 8 multiple methods. These are the same 6 methods that we have consistently met. Our board policies within the past year went through extensive revision and review, and we incorporated changes that were recommended by the Community College League of California to ensure that all of the significant changes that were brought forth due to the new Title IX regulations in the fall actually impacted a number of board policies. And so those were brought forward in the fall and the district meets that requirement. We also continue to engage in focused outreach efforts and in publications. We've actually done some additional expansion of our outreach efforts, including advertising with professional organizations, taking out ads in conference brochures and materials to expand our reach as far as possible to attract the most diverse applicant pool that we can. Method 5, we continue to address diversity evaluation through each step of the hiring process. and that's at all levels of recruitments within the organization. Method 6 relates to ongoing training for screening and selection committees. We've added some additional recertification or training options for committee members to ensure that that process is ongoing with a particular emphasis in focusing on the importance of eliminating bias in the hiring process. Professional development that focuses on diversity. This is another area where we have had a bit of expansion, and there is specific and targeted work that's quite exciting happening at each of the colleges. And so we've highlighted in the document where there are some things happening, for example, at Norco College, working with the Q Institute out of the University of Southern California. There are some professional certification opportunities that are available to employees. And Moreno Valley College continues to put on an annual, incredibly valuable and impressive diversity summit, as well as RCC focusing on similar opportunities. And lastly, our ability to grow your own, which is to basically provide growth opportunities for employees within the district so that they have opportunity to promote for new positions or opportunities within the district. And that ends my review and report of this certification form. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
All right, are there any questions from colleagues? Committee members? All right. Oh,
Thank
President
you.
Figueroa?
Well,
Comment, actually on the technicality of this presentation. That was a struggle trying to understand the presentation. I almost raised my hand to stop it, but I could kind of get probably every other word. And so it got across, but that was the real struggle for me. I don't know if anybody else had that issue, but having, it's basically like the voice is coming off into the audio section, and up here, it's not really kind of being delivered. So that right there is an issue that I have with this presentation. Now, the content of this presentation is extremely valuable. I mean, this is something that we've been talking about for quite some time. This is something that is straight across the board, whether just not in the state, but a national topic to be discussed, to see exactly where we are with all of these issues. And there's probably no other department in this district that can have a potential to cost us money. It's going to be human relations. It's going to be that whole people sector of our labor market and how we're doing things and how we're not doing things. And so this content that we have and it's being presented to us is something that we should continue to make sure that we stay on top of, and we continue to ask for regular updates on, so that we are continuing to monitor it as it's going along.
Yeah, I guess the question I have on this one is, with that method 1 box being a no, did I understand that this has to be then reviewed until that's a yes before this moves forward? And whoever is willing to answer that.
I'm sorry, Trustee Alcala, I only caught half of your question. Could you repeat it, please?
Where are you? I'm lost.
No, I
well, I
just,
think Lorraine's talking and it's not coming across. Is that what I'm understanding? Yes. Somehow her sound is not coming across on the speakers.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. So if I understand your question correctly, Trustee Alcala, you're asking if we're unable to move forward with approving the form until the EEO plan is addressed? Is that your question?
Yeah, that the method one section of it currently states no, and it says that it's, if I'm reading this correctly, that it's mandatory. So until that becomes a yes, is this kind of on hold?
No, we would still report it to the Chancellor's office. The due date annually to report is June 1st. The clarification that I sought from the Chancellor's office was whether or not we can in fact say yes, because the district does have an EEO plan. The issue is that the review process was put on hold in January. So the current EEO plan is expired, but it does exist. And so the state chancellor's office was reviewing it to determine, especially in light of the fact that the district meets all the other requirements in one, and that we are actively engaged in addressing the concerns brought forth by faculty so that we could continue the review and resubmit the revised EEO plan and update the 3-year period for the time that it would be valid as quickly as possible. So I anticipate that they will say that we can indicate yes, but I just haven't gotten clarification. What we could do, even if it is no, what we would do is provide the Chancellor's office with an update that the EEO plan has been updated when we are in fact able to achieve that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening. This is Mark Selleck. I just wanted to address one of the statements that Director Jones made about faculty outreach. It was the case indeed that faculty took a little issue with the EEO plan not going through participatory governance and brought that to the attention of the board in January. And if I heard you correctly, you said that there has been some serious outreach to faculty to try to address this problem. I'm wondering to whom you reached out to. I just looked in my email. I've gotten nothing from you. I don't want to speak for either the union or the district academic senate president, but I'm wondering, Dr. Jones, if you could tell us who you've been reaching out to resolve the problems that we raised in January.
No, I believe what just occurred is there was a conflation of what I was addressing. The outreach that I was referring to was specifically method 4, an outreach for our recruitment. What I said related to following up on the concerns raised by faculty is that I've had discussions with Dr. Isak regarding moving forward to address those, but I did not state what you heard right now.
Okay, I would hope if there is a concern about dealing with faculty leadership to get this passed, that there will be some outreach to the faculty leadership so that we can get this dealt with, because the last thing that we want to have happen is that we miss an opportunity to secure funds for equal employment opportunity on the basis of us not having, participatory governance working the way it should. So
Yes,
thank you.
Absolutely. Working with Dr. Isak to do just that.
All right, any other comments, questions? All right, Madam President, back to you.
All right, thank you. Actually, that ends up being the last item under the open session of the board meeting. And so now we actually move into other business, which there isn't anything. And so we're going on to closed session. Believe it or not, that is going to end this beautiful location here that we have. So we have the following items, and there are 3 of them that we are going to be meeting on. Conference with real property negotiators, Government Code Section 54956.8, property former Greyhound Terminal site adjacent to the New Riverside Main Library across the street. Our agency negotiator, Aaron Brown, Vice Chancellor, Business and Financial Services, negotiating parties, RCCD, OPR Student Housing, LLC, and City of Riverside. Under negotiation, discussion of purchase, action to be determined. Item number B, conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives, WOLDOP ESOC Chancellor, Employee Organization, RCCD Faculty Association, CTA/NEA, action to be determined. And the last item, C, conference with labor negotiators, Government Code Section 54957.6. Agency designated representatives, WOLDOP ESOC Chancellor, Employee Organization, RCCD, California School Employees Association, CSEA, Chapter 535. And again, action to be determined. And so at this time, this board will move into closed session. And it's not anticipated what action will happen. So we don't know that I'll be back to see you, but if you are here, I will be there. So we'll move now to that. So thank you, everybody, for joining us at this time.